Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Twitter, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. As always, I'm Bryson Carver. We have got an absolutely jam-packed show on tap for you guys tonight. We ever since we moved the show to Wednesday about a month ago, right before the football season, we're trying to incorporate, obviously, Bryson's best 10, which is going to be in about 45 minutes an hour, something like that. My top 10 teams in the NFL moving into Week 5. The funny thing is, 9 of my top 10 from last week come back this week. Obviously, there's going to be some realignment there, and one new team making their debut on Bryson's Best 10. It's actually kind of a little bit of a surprise team. Definitely stay tuned for that, Bryson's Best 10 going into Week 5. Also, going to get into carving up the context, which once again involves an NBA story in what is, to me, and I'm dead serious when I say this, something that has evolved into the dumbest rivalry I've ever seen in the NBA. I can't speak to college football or the NFL necessarily, but it's a rivalry. It is. But it's one of the dumbest I've ever seen. I'll get into in about a half hour or so. Also going to get into my predictions for tomorrow night's matchup between the Washington Commanders and the Chicago Bears. Washington starts 2-0. They lost the last two, even though their offense was good last week against Philly. Chicago looking for their first win since October of 2022. So obviously a big game for both teams. Certainly for Washington, trying to kind of keep pace in the NFC East and really more realistically in the wild card mix in the NFC. And I'll also, of course, get into Dallas, San Francisco, probably the biggest game of this NFL season thus far. And to me, the keys are two individuals for this football game on Sunday night. Cannot wait for that matchup. It's going to be a good one, no question about it, between two contenders in the NFC. But first, let's start with the team that is at the bottom of the NFC East, and I don't exactly see that changing anytime soon. The New York Giants, who dropped their game, that's generous, lost badly to the Seattle Seahawks by a final score of 24-3 the other night on Monday Night Football. Seattle's offense was kind of uneven all night. Geno Smith at one point got hurt, but the Giants' offense was simply abysmal. Daniel Jones, 27 of 34, good completion percentage, but just over 200 yards, 2 interceptions, including a bad pick six down in the red zone. QBR 22 and a passer rating of 67. He simply did not play well. So real quick on Seattle, because I think the main story here is the Giants. Listen, I liked Seattle coming into the season. I feel like they'd be second in their division in the NFC West to the clearly superior Niners, but still go on to make the playoffs with a 10-7 record. They're 3-1 today. I feel really good about it. For the record, Seattle next week. I'm sorry, they got a bye week this week, and then the week after they got the Cincinnati Bengals with a beat-up Joe Burrow. So you got to feel good right now if you're a member of the 12th man, because Seattle is playing excellent football. To lose Geno Smith for the time being and Drew Lock to come in there make some plays, Seattle was able to run the football relatively effectively, averaging over 5 yards a carry, and the defense continues to play well. They're still kind of finding their footing, but that Devin Witherspoon, who I remember doing a draft show, or the Grid Network's first ever NFL draft show last April, which for the record was a blast with all the guys on the network, or a lot of the guys on the network. And I remember when Seattle took Devin Witherspoon with the 5th overall pick, and we're all kind of like, what? I mean, he got Christian Gonzalez, which, God bless Christian Gonzalez, out for the season with the shoulder injury. I hated to see that because I loved him out of Oregon. So prayers that the young man's able to heal up pretty fast and be ready for 2024. But I'm like, man, if you're going to take a corner, take Christian Gonzalez. But Devin Witherspoon, he's looked better and better week after week. It was kind of moved into a different spot in the lineup due to some injuries in Seattle's secondary, and played very well. So you give props to him, and Pete Carroll knows how to coach defense. There's no doubt about that. So hats off to the kid for making some big time plays, including the play of the night being the pick six. It felt like kind of put the game out of reach for the Giants because they could generate absolutely nothing on the offensive side of the ball. As for the Giants, again, to me, the bigger story in this game, the team that has scored a grand total in 2 home games of 3 points. And listen, I'm going to be, because we hear, listen, New York's a big market, a lot of media there. There's a lot of, if you're great, they love you. If you're bad, they hate you. It's kind of like New York, Boston, Philadelphia. Some of these bigger markets, even Los Angeles is like this. And Los Angeles, we think, is more of a laid back type of culture out west. But when the Lakers suck, the fans will let you know they suck. And if they're great, they're singing your praises. That's kind of how it is in some of those markets. I'm going to be the rare Daniel Jones critic who defends him today. In the same sense that I did back in week 1 when Dallas shellacked New York 40-0 on opening night on Sunday Night Football in the Meadowlands, and the Giants, again, obviously went scoreless, and Daniel Jones played poorly that particular evening. So I have over the history of Carving Up Live. I actually started my show 2019, which was Daniel Jones' rookie year. I've always been skeptical of him. I've always been of the mindset that for the Giants to take him as high as they did in 2019 was ludicrous. If he hit his absolute peak, his absolute ceiling, he'd be a good quarterback, but nothing special. Nothing in the realm of, he's an elite player by any stretch of the imagination. Even last year when it was like Daniel Jones' breakout year. Well, yeah, it was only a breakout year because he stopped turning the ball over at a very alarming rate. By the way, he threw 4 picks last year. He already has 5 this season, so you can't expect that trend to really get in the right direction if you're a Giants fan or if you're Daniel Jones or the Giants coaching staff. But that's really what I want to hit on. Daniel Jones is limited. That goes without saying. I don't think the story of this game is, Daniel Jones sucked once again. That's 3 out of 4 games to start the season in which he played poorly. And if you want to date back to last season, the playoff game against Philly, he didn't play well in that one as well. To me, the story is Brian Daboll. And I love Brian Daboll. I think he rightfully won Coach of the Year a season ago. Last year, what he did for the New York Giants, helping them get to the playoffs, by the way. And this postseason doesn't, matter to voting for these regular season awards, of course, but led the Giants on the road at Minnesota. That's a loud environment to a playoff win. The defense was good. Daniel Jones played well. And obviously lose to Philadelphia the next week. But let's be honest, even though I actually picked the Giants to win that game, the Eagles were supposed to win. But there's something you could build off of if you're a Giants fan. You go out and get Darren Waller. You bring Saquon Barkley back. You bring Andrew Thomas back in a big deal. You go out and draft my man Jalen Hyatt, who they're not getting the ball to enough. But the fact of the matter is this. What do we know about great coaches? Opening drive or opening quarter, just to start the football game in general. They have a good game plan. Maybe they start out hot. They put together a nice, solid opening drive, move the ball down the field, kind of a mix of run and passes. Maybe you throw a little reverse in there, a little trick play from time to time. And quite simply, the New York Giants have looked completely unprepared. They've been outcoached in every single game this season. I'd even say the Cardinals game, because the Cardinals are not as talented as the Giants. That game, with respect to the Cardinals, should not have come down to a 20-point comeback for the Giants and a walk-off field goal by Graham Gano. That should not have been the case. They've been outcoached in every game, and they've started awfully in every single game. Against Dallas, a scoreless first half. They were terrible. Multiple turnovers, pick six, a blocked punt. Blocked field goal return for a touchdown for the Cowboys. Terrible. Week 2 against the Cardinals, they get shut out again in the first half. To their credit, they come back and win that game 31-28. The week after against the San Francisco 49ers, 6 points in the first half, and they ended up matching that in the second half with 6 more points for only 12 on that particular evening in Santa Clara. And then last night, once again, a single field goal. The New York Giants simply this season have been awful in the first half and dug themselves too big of a hole to come back in the second half, because we know, even those who like Daniel Jones, thinks he can maybe be a franchise quarterback for the New York Giants, those who may have, I think, wrongly defended the Giants giving him the contract that they gave him, would all acknowledge, if you're in a spot where you're down double digits on a primetime game, of which Daniel Jones, by the way, has been horrible, probably the worst, check the numbers, folks, the worst primetime quarterback we've ever seen. We got on Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins has had a couple decent primetime games. Name the Daniel Jones primetime moment. It doesn't exist, simply put. So, if you're constantly down double digits, if you're trying to come back constantly, you're not, forget just playing to Daniel Jones' strengths, you're simply not being honest and putting your quarterback in a position to be successful. You're not being honest about what he is. Again, of course the Giants made it a big mistake, giving a 4-year, $160 million contract. In no universe is he a $40 million a year player. No universe. But, again, I'm the Daniel Jones critic who's defending Daniel Jones today. He was sacked 11 times on Monday Night Football. By the way, avoided a lot more. We've always said, like, Daniel Jones' biggest strength is probably his mobility. He avoided multiple. He could have been sacked 13, 14 times the other night. He was sacked 11 times by Seattle. He had no Saquon Barkley. Again, if you're criticizing, why can't Daniel Jones lift the team? Because that's not who he is. So at least be honest with what you have. Get Jalen Hyatt the ball more. Run the ball effective. They can't do that. And Brian Daboll, you see him on the sideline with Daniel Jones, where Daniel threw, again, the Awful pick six. Again, what's funny about that game is that Seattle's up 14-3. They seem like they had the momentum, and the Giants come out in the second half, put together a good drive, get in the red zone, and then Daniel Jones makes the horrible decision to force the ball to the left side. Devin Witherspoon takes it to the house, and that's pretty much all she wrote for that football game. But he goes to the sidelines, and you see him and Brian Daboll. They're kind of having a conversation back and forth, and Daboll's got the Microsoft tablet. He didn't break it, although he tried to pull a Tom Brady and break the tablet. But he's showing Daniel Jones what's going on there, and then he just kind of tosses the tablet, not at Daniel Jones, but in the direction of Daniel Jones in a very frustrating manner. Bro, this ain't all on Daniel. This is on you too, coach. And I like Brian Daboll. I think I don't think this is debatable. He's been the best coach the Giants have had since Coughlin retired. And I think he's a brilliant offensive mind, and we've seen the success Josh Allen had with him in the past, and it really hurt Josh Allen last year to not have Brian Daboll as his offensive coordinator. That said, the Giants, week after week after week, look unprepared. They're committing penalties. They're turning the football over. They can't protect Daniel Jones. The Giants have proven themselves to have maybe the worst offensive line in New York, which would therefore mean the worst in football, because the Jets obviously have an abysmal line, as we lamented about all offseason. Do I think Daniel Jones is elite? Do I think he'll ever be elite? No and no. At least acknowledge that if you're the New York Giants franchise and if you are Brian Daboll. I like Daboll. I actually like aspects of the Giants roster. But play into what your quarterback is good at. If you're limited, play into that. By the way, I give, like the Dallas Cowboys. Remember last year, and Dak Prescott went down, and they went 4-1 with Cooper Rush, and the whole media's freaking out, like, oh, is there a quarterback competition in Dallas, which was silly. But part of the reason that was even suggested was not just that Dallas was winning games. It was that the Cowboys coaching staff, and I'm not a Kellen Moore guy, but you give props to Kellen Moore and to Mike McCarthy. They said, you know what? Cooper Rush can't make the throws Dak can make. Cooper Rush can't push the ball down the field. What we're going to do, and Dallas has a better roster than the Giants in fairness, but we're going to rely on Zeke and Tony Pollard. We're going to ask him, we're going to put him in situations where it's 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5. Maybe he hits a check down. Maybe he's got to make that one big throw in the game, which Cooper Rush made from time to time to a CeeDee Lamb, to a Dalton Schultz, somebody like that. Keep him out of harm's way. You make him a game manager because that's what he is, because he's a backup. I think obviously Daniel Jones is better than Cooper Rush. I don't think Daniel's a backup. I don't think he's top 20, so he certainly could be flirting with that backup sort of role. But I can't be too hard on a player that we know is limited if his coaching staff is screwing him over. Because that's what they are. The Giants have the weapons. They've got Jalen Hyatt. They've got Darren Waller. Okay, even with no Saquon Barkley, who we hope, knock on wood, should be back pretty soon for the Giants. But it's not a situation where, again, we know he's limited. Again, by the way, it's not Daniel Jones' fault the Giants gave him the contract they gave him. I mean, I'm sure Daniel Jones was thrilled about that, but they didn't sign it. Daniel Jones didn't sign himself to that deal. Daniel Jones didn't draft himself 6th overall back in 2019. It's mismanagement by the Giants organization, and in particular now, the coaching staff. They look unprepared, undisciplined, and completely outcoached week in and week out. And that simply cannot happen if you're aspiring to make the playoffs. Got a few comments here. Parnell is in the comments, the host of the Commander's Demand podcast here on the Grid, as well as the Sports PSP podcast. Parnell says, the Giants made a mistake giving Daniel Jones the bag. Did they draft Daniel Jones because he was the best quarterback after Kyler Murray, or because his head coach at Duke, or because of his head coach at Duke, who's tight with the Mannings? Yeah, I mean, I know that, so obviously Kyler went 1 in that draft. The late Dwayne Haskins went after that, or no, I'm sorry, Dwayne Haskins went after Daniel Jones. My mistake. He actually went to Parnell's Commanders. Yeah, I mean, maybe it had something to do with David Cutcliffe, who's the head coach at Duke, a former head coach at Duke, who is tight with. He was Peyton's offensive coordinator at the University of Tennessee, my Volunteers, and he was Eli's head coach at Ole Miss. Maybe it's because Daniel Jones bears a similar resemblance to Eli Manning in many ways. I don't know. The Smitty says Niners. I will talk about the Niners in just a second with the Cowboys game against the Niners. And then, of course, no shocker here, they will, of course, be featured on Bryson's Best 10, my top 10 teams in the NFL, a little later in the show at about 30 to 45 minutes. Definitely stay tuned in for that, because a little bit of a shakeup here. A lot happened in the NFL in Week 4. A lot happened. But again, and someone might say, well, Bryson, you're out here killing Mac Jones for for struggling in New England. And well, here's why I'm crushing Mac Jones. In large part, his attitude. At least Daniel Jones isn't cussing out Daboll or his teammates or taking shots at them or being immature. Or everybody in New York seems to like the guy. They just, I would think, know he has some clear limitations. That's what it is. And so, by the way, the Giants, who they have next week, yeah, it doesn't get a whole lot easier for the Giants. They've got this team down in Miami, who the Dolphins are 11-point favorites in that contest. So again, the road does not get easier for the Miami Dolphins. Philip Chenault, my man Philip, is in the comments. What's up, man? He says, as a Cowboys fan, I'm so glad the Giants paid Danny pennies. That is not, they're not going to be a threat to us for the next 5 years. No, that they're, as long as Daniel Jones is there, no, he's not going to be a threat to the Cowboys. Listen, Dak Prescott has lost twice to the Giants, but has not lost since 2016. So, yeah, that's long as you have Dak, you're going to beat the New York Giants. But yeah, I mean, I don't blame Cowboys, Commanders, and Eagles fans for being thrilled, or a lot of NFL teams being thrilled that the Giants paid Daniel Jones the money they did. And I said the day that contract was signed in mid-March, I said this is lunacy to give him that kind of money. I get the quarterback market changes, but under the context of what the highest paid quarterbacks in the sport are paid, Burrow, Mahomes, of course, just got his deal restructured, Herbert, Hurts, guys like that, Lamar Jackson, some of the highest paid quarterbacks, flirting with about $60 million-ish, mid-50s, $60 million a year. Daniel Jones is not a $40 million a year guy. $40 million a year, I'd say, is a guy who's currently making that salary now, Matt Stafford. I'm fine with paying Matthew Stafford that amount of money. Daniel Jones, I hate to play contract here, but is I don't know, best case a 20 mil guy. Again, I think he's a starter. He's shown us moments, but I think it has more to do with the coaching staff and certainly the offensive line than it does Daniel Jones, from what I've seen. Again, we know he's limited, but at least play into his strengths from time to time. Okay, so this is the game everybody's looking forward to, folks. It's the Dallas Cowboys and it's the San Francisco 49ers from Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara. The standalone Sunday Night Football game could be the highest rated game of the season outside of with the possible exception of Thanksgiving. The Cowboys game gets big ratings, and so does the Lions game. By the way, I think both will win. Detroit, Dallas, I think will play in the NFC title game. I predicted that for the season. I still feel pretty good about that today. However, it's not about Thanksgiving. It's a long ways from now. It's a month and a half from now. Let's focus on the here and now. It's week 5, and this is a matchup between two of the best teams, and not just the NFC, but the NFL in general. So, Niners, and I'm not going to predict this game outright for the record. That's for Friday's show, for my predictions. But San Francisco today is a 4-point favorite. I would probably have it around 4.5-ish. 5 maybe. 5 might be a little bit too much, but 4.5 feels close to where it's at. But we're sort of we're nitpicking a little bit, so 4 is fine. 4 is a doable line. By the way, ESPN's matchup predictor gives the Niners a 55% chance to win, given they're at home, and given the fact that under Brock Purdy, they have not lost a single game, at least in which Brock Purdy did not have to go to the hospital. Of course, he did with the UCL tear against the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFC title game. But as for this matchup, a lot of hype around it. We know how great San Francisco's roster is. We know Dallas has some elite playmakers on defense and on offense. And we know that the last couple of years they faced off in the playoffs, and the Niners have gotten the better of Dallas in both occasions. One game in Jerry World, one game at Levi's Stadium. Here's where I'm at on this matchup. So I do think the Niners are better than Dallas today. I think the Niners have the best roster in the NFL, top to bottom. I actually saw Pro Football Focus, which people roll their eyes like, oh, you guys mention Pro Football Focus all the time, folks. These people, their jobs is to literally sit down and watch film all day. I think they know what they're talking about. Pro Football Focus said that has graded the Niners, the only team in the NFL that can say this. Pro Football Focus has graded 4 of their position players number 1 in the NFL. 4 of them. They've got him everywhere. And Brock Purdy is a guy that I've religiously stated since, not since his first start necessarily, although I've liked him since then when he made that first start against Tampa and played awesome against Brady and the Bucs. But ever since then, even especially to now, and I talked about this a couple weeks ago when the Niners beat the Giants on Thursday Night Football, I said we have to get out of the space that the system makes the quarterback, or I shouldn't say the system makes the quarterback, that Shanahan's carrying Purdy, or that this Niners roster is carrying Purdy. Guys, when we look at what the difference in the scheme in San Francisco from the days of Jimmy G to Brock Purdy now, night and day. They are asking him to make tough throws. They are asking him to push the ball down the field. They are asking him to get outside the pocket and make plays. So yes, I think Brock Purdy is absolutely, of course, he's a starter in the NFL. I think he has the potential to be one of the 12 best quarterbacks in the NFL. If he plays good enough, maybe flirting with that top 10 spot. But I've seen enough from him to this point to show me that he is in that class. Dak Prescott is, I think even Niners fans would agree, better than Brock Purdy. And to you Dak haters like, oh my God, Brock Purdy's having a better season. Oh, he's never lost. Folks, if you switch Brock Purdy and Dak Prescott, do you think the 49ers would be better? Yes, they would be. Okay, let's just stop this. Dak has taken some rosters to the playoffs in the past. See 2018 as a prime example. But what I think is the biggest story, again, we talked about the Giants-Seahawks game a moment ago, the biggest story in this football game, two individuals who participated in both of the last two matchups in the playoffs and came up small. One not quite as small as the other in the first matchup, but you get the point. Dak Prescott, Mike McCarthy. Comes down to those two. Because the over-under, Vegas in this game, because both defenses are awesome, Vegas has the over-under at 45. So they think it's going to be kind of a low-scoring affair. San Francisco, Dallas going to be struggling just to get to 20. This game is not going to be a shootout where San Francisco going up and down the field and Dallas, and it's going to be like a 35-31 type of game. It's not going to be that. So, yeah, just trying to help y'all out for those that may or may not be gambling or betting on this game. Let's look at the first matchup that Dallas played San Francisco in. So Jimmy Garoppolo was the quarterback in that game, and that game was the wildcard game, NFC wildcard game played in Dallas, in which the Niners won 23-17. That game, more than anything, is well known for the last play, 14 seconds left. Dallas is where are they at in the field? I think they're at the 40-yard line. Make sure where they're at. The Dallas Cowboys in this spot are at the San Francisco, the San Francisco 41. And they run the quarterback draw with Dak. Again, they had no timeouts. Again, only 14 seconds left. They botched it badly. Dak ran too far, slid too late. They bumped into the official. They couldn't get the snap off for one final heave into the end zone. And so McCarthy was crushed for it. Kellen Moore was crushed for it, and rightfully so. It was a horrendous call. There's no question about that. So McCarthy came up small in that regard, and Dallas had 14 penalties in that game. Dak, on the other hand, in that contest, played, and the stats say he was actually worse than he was in the second Niners-Cowboys matchup. I disagree, but his completion percentage wasn't good. 254 is fine, but not anything to go crazy about. A touchdown, a bad pick in his own territory, and a QBR 0 to 100 of 32 and a passer rating at 69. So Dak did not. I said after that game, I maintained Dak played well enough for them to win, given how well the defense played. He made a fourth down throw to Cedric Wilson that frankly should have been caught. It wasn't. That's neither here nor there. But if Dak makes a throw here, a throw there, puts Dallas in a better spot where he doesn't have to make a last-second desperate throw to Cedric Wilson. He doesn't. So Dak wasn't amazing in that game, wasn't terrible, just kind of in between. Wasn't necessarily the reason they were in the game, let's put it that way. As for the second matchup, more of the blame goes to Dak Prescott than it does to Mike McCarthy. Because Dak Prescott in that game, in a game in which, now Brock Purdy started this matchup, when Brock Purdy and the Niners are on a roll, they drop, 30-40 on the Seattle Seahawks in the wildcard matchup the week before. Dallas' defense held them to 19 points. If you're a Cowboys fan and you told, or somebody who picked the Cowboys to win or bet on the Cowboys to win, if you told somebody that going in that game, San Francisco's going to score 19, you feel great. Like if the offense just does anything, if they replicate what they did the week before against Tampa Bay, they'll be in good shape. And they scored 12. And Dak Prescott was and I said the next day as the biggest Dak fan on earth, that game fell on Dak more than it did anybody else. 23 of 37, 206, a touchdown, 2 interceptions. One was a terrible throw down in the red zone when he was looking for CeeDee Lamb. Fred Warner picked the pass off. QBR 53. I don't know how it got to 53. To me, it should have been more in the 20s and 30s. Passer rating of 63, which is not good. Given those two matchups, the biggest reason that I say it's more about Dak and McCarthy is that, remember this was last week when Dallas lost the Arizona Cardinals and people freaking out, And I said my biggest criticism of Dallas and of Dak, not necessarily Dak Prescott, but of Mike McCarthy, because he calls plays now, and so there's an extended level of scrutiny of him, is that against the Cardinals, when Dallas is trailing throughout, he takes virtually no shot or draws up no place to take shots down the field. I mean, I remember that late in that game, they're down, was it 12? And they're running the ball in the red zone, like kind of similar to the way Colorado, not quite as bad, but kind of the way Colorado was at the end of the game against USC. You're like, Coach, what are you doing? Like, you need big plays. You need chunk plays. You need to get down the field. Your quarterback, statistically, since he walked into the league, is one of the most efficient quarterbacks in football when throwing down the field. When it's 20 yards or more, Dallas only took 3 of those shots in that game against the Cardinals. In this matchup, it's going to be the focal point of San Francisco's offense is going to be running the football because Dallas has been an opportunistic defense. They've taken the ball away from Daniel Jones, from Zach Wilson. They didn't from Joshua Dobbs, and they did 3 times against Mac Jones. Brock Purdy is better than all of those quarterbacks. However, they did hold him to 19 last year, and not only that, San Francisco's run game is awesome. Did you see what Christian McCaffrey did last week? I mean, you got people out here talking about is Christian McCaffrey the MVP of the league? Who'd ever thought we'd be saying that at a running back, but it's because of what he can do, not just in the running game, but in the passing game. He had 4 touchdowns last week, and Dallas's defense, as great as it is, as great as Micah and Stephon Gilmore, Leighton Vander Esch, all those guys are, the weakness of their defense, they cannot stop the run. Remember, the Cardinals went for 200 rushing yards against them. Now, if Dallas builds a lead early, if they're up 10-0, then the defensive line could pin their ears back and come after Brock Purdy. I don't anticipate that happening. Whether or not I pick Dallas or not to win the game is beside the point. I don't think they're going to jump out to a 10-0 lead. I don't. If they do, they're in great shape because then they could just come after the quarterback. But San Francisco's in a spot where it could be a Christian McCaffrey game throughout. They got an elite offensive line, and of course, ask Brock Purdy to be in a more reduced role because of how great the running game is and because Dallas simply cannot stop it. They can't. That's what could get them beat in the playoffs later on. For Dallas, it's an entirely different story. Dallas can run the ball as well. They do have Tony Pollard. They do have Rico Dowdle. They have a solid running game in Dallas, and I think their offensive line it's improved drastically from last year pass protection, but it's much better in the running game. This has to be a game, if the Cowboys are to win, where Mike McCarthy, it's the opposite of the Cardinals game, where I think there are going to be moments in which maybe let's throw out a score. Again, I think it's going to be low scoring. Strapped a hat there. I think it's going to be low scoring. Let's say it's at one point 13-7 Niners. Say it's 13-7 Niners with 5 minutes left in the third quarter. And Dallas is in a position where they've got the ball and they're not generating anything offensively. Maybe there's a turnover in there, but their defense is playing well. They're keeping them in the game. The morale is still high on that sideline. That's got to be a spot where Mike McCarthy, I know he loves the running game. I know he wants Dak to work out of the play action. But where he's got to say, Dak, you got to go win the game for us, buddy. We are going to draw up plays for you to take shots down the field. We're going to get situations where receivers separate. Again, we talk about the weakness for the Cowboys is their run defense. You could argue if there is a weakness in San Francisco, it's their pass defense. Because as good as we talk about, Dallas has played some average to bad quarterbacks this year. I mean, the Niners, aside from Stafford, haven't played world beaters. They played my man Kenny Pickett. They played again Matt Stafford, who's still very good. In week 3, they played Daniel Jones. And then last week, they played, again, my man Joshua Dobbs. But Josh Dobbs, nobody's ever going to mistake him for an elite quarterback. Dak Prescott is, again, the best quarterback that the Niners have faced. And so that's got to be a game which the Cowboys' running game is not going to win it. It's not. They cannot win it if it's a run-first type of situation unless their defense gets like 4 takeaways, which I don't see happening. This has got to be a game where it's a repeat of last year, in which Dak couldn't win the game with his arm because he did miss some open throws and he did turn the football over at key inopportune times. If Dak throws a pick, he throws a pick. Again, it's going to be low scoring. I'm not going to be, if Dak throws a pick and it's a bad read, oh my God, he's awful. That's not, who cares about that? It's about whether or not he can make the throws when you really need it. If it's 13, let's throw out a score here. Let's say it's 20-12. 20-12 San Francisco, 20-13 with 5 minutes left in the game, and Dallas has got the ball at their own 25. You know what? Let's minimize that down to 4 minutes. Where the running game, there's not enough time for you to run your way down there, which I don't think you can anyway because of how great the Niners' front is. Dak has to win the game with his arm, and McCarthy has to allow him to win the game with his arm. He's got to draw up plays for Dak to win the game with his arm. Because Dallas cannot win with their running game against that Niners front. They can't. It's going to be a very fascinating matchup because Dak made a couple nice throws in that first playoff game, but not enough. And last year, I can't really think of a signature as the biggest Dak fan on planet Earth. I can't think of that one throw where I'm like, dang, that was a good throw by Dak, or that was a big play by Dak. Cowboys defense was good enough for them to win. They didn't take the ball away, but they held them to 19 points. Like, you'll take that against that Niners offense. You'll take that. It's got to be a Dak Prescott game. It's got to be a Mike McCarthy game. Very, very interesting matchup. Again, if I'm going to guarantee anything, I'll predict the game on Friday. If I'm going to guarantee anything, it will be low scoring. Again, Vegas has the over-under at 45. San Francisco's favored -4, so do the math. That's about 24-20 Niners, something in that ballpark. But it's going to have to be a Dak Prescott game. It is. Let's see. Philip Chenault says, Philip's a Cowboys fan, by the way. He says, if we stop their run game and don't have a lot of turnovers, we win the game, but that's easier said than done against the best running back in the league in Christian McCaffrey. MVP right now, in my opinion. Like I said, I mentioned people are talking about this guy as the MVP of the league. You can make a case. You can. I don't think Tua is totally out of discussion. Again, we're only 4 games in the year, so it's hard to have a real legitimate MVP conversation. We got to really wait till like late November. Like that's... Late November, early December is when the MVP race will kind of be narrowed down. Like some of the guys will be weeded out. Not to say Christian McCaffrey will necessarily, because he's one of the best players in the league. But it'll be interesting. But Cowboys win. It's going to be because Dak Prescott won the game. Now, as far as my defense of Dak, of course, you guys know I'm objective on Dak, but a lot of that involves dispelling myths that the media tries to throw out there from time to time about Rayne Dakota Prescott. This notion, I've heard so many people say today, this is a crossroads game for Dak. It's a do-or-die game for Dak. No, it's not. It is not a do-or-die game for Dak. It's not a crossroad game for the Cowboys. I shouldn't say a crossroad for the Cowboys. Crossroads for Dak. I'll get to the Cowboys in just a second. For Dak, let's talk about him real quick. If they lose this game, he doesn't play particularly well. Okay, they've got 5 games in the season. They still got 12 games, and they'll get a second crack at San Francisco, and Dak will have a chance to redeem himself. That will be a crossroads game. If they get San Francisco, or even in Dallas, wherever the game's played, and it's divisional round, Cowboys haven't made the NFC Championship game since 1996, and we know that story goes. Like, there's pressure on Dak, 100%, and there should be. There's the expectations that comes with that, given his performance the last 2 years against that team. For Dallas, though, I think it's more for Dallas as a team, as a collective unit, than just for one player. I think they kind of need this. And I predicted Dallas to make the Super Bowl and lose to the Kansas City Chiefs, but I didn't think they would have to play the Niners. I said Detroit would upset San Francisco in the divisional round. Dallas would beat Philly, and Dallas would beat the Lions to advance to the big game in February. But if they do meet, is there a little bit of a psychological disadvantage for the Cowboys where it's, okay, we've lost the last 2 years in the playoffs. We lost the regular season game in week 5. Maybe, again, we've got to see how the game plays out, but maybe we didn't play all that well, whether it's the offense or the defense. Like, there's that little bit of a psychological barrier that I don't think would exist with the Philadelphia, who Dak Prescott's been very successful against, or Detroit, who Dak's been successful against, or Seattle, who he's beaten before in the playoffs. For San Francisco, it's a bit of a different story. So I can't wait. It's gonna be an awesome game. It's gonna be for those of y'all that love defense. Tune in this game on Sunday Night Football. It's gonna be a fun one. But again, what I don't want to see from Mike McCarthy, especially if it's second half, the game's tight, which we assume it will be. What I don't want to see is a conservative run-first offense. That's not going to cut it against San Francisco. It's not. You need chunk plays. You need big-time throws from your quarterback. Whether or not Dak can make those remains to be seen. Again, that is, in my view, the best defense in football. They've made Hall of Famers, Aaron Rodgers, look very pedestrian. They've made Matt Stafford struggle. They've made Jalen Hurts look kind of average in the past. It's a great defense. Really, Mahomes is the only quarterback who has been... Now, that Super Bowl, he didn't play all that well until the last half of the fourth quarter. But in the last couple of years, Mahomes has really been the only elite, which he's the best quarterback in the league, obviously, but the cream of the crop type quarterbacks that has played great. He dropped, I think, 44 it was last year in the Niners, which again, that's Patrick Mahomes. He's just in a different universe than everybody else. But Philip says 28-27. Okay, so a little bit of a high scoring game you've got, Philip. 28-27, Dallas wins. I'll need to check. I think that was my score prediction for the game in the playoffs last year. 28-27 Dallas. I think it was. Or was that my score for Dallas and Tampa? I think mine was more like 24-20 Cowboys. I don't know. I know I picked the Cowboys to beat the Niners last year in the playoffs. Obviously, I was wrong, but I think my prediction was 28-27 Dallas over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But if they beat San Francisco to score 28, I think they'll be at the top of Bryce's best 10 going into week 6. I'm just going to tell you right now. That would be highly, to me, let's put it this way. Who was the old, I shouldn't say old, who was the former TV announcer? I'm forgetting the guy's name. It's back in my brain. I can't remember the guy's name. Who was the former TV announcer for the Los Angeles Clippers? Remember he had some of those iconic calls, those Blake Griffin dunks back in the day. I'm forgetting the guy's name. He was a really good broadcaster. But he had a rule in the past where he said the first, I don't know how accurate it necessarily is, but he said like the first NBA team in a basketball game, first team to 100 usually wins. I think this is going to be a game where it's first team to 24 wins. I really do. I think I'm not even sure if either team will even get to 24 because both defenses are great. But I think if whoever scores 24 in this game, whoever gets to that point total, they win the game. I'm telling you, I am thrilled. Listen, I may be a former Cowboys fan and obviously a lifelong Dak Prescott fan. I'm an NFL fan at the end of the day. This is going to be an awesome game. Awesome game. Bryson's best 10 later in the show, by the way. After this next segment, which is carving up the context. So NBA Media Day has been going on. NBA training camp has already started. And NBA Media Day was on Monday. Of course, the big story was there was two big stories. James Harden not showing up for Media Day. Well, it's James Harden. Are we all that surprised? We talk about running from the grind. James Harden runs from the grind. It's 3 teams he's quit on, but this isn't about James Harden. The second biggest story was Jimmy Butler's new emo look, which he's going to ditch pretty soon, but that's going to be his player picture all season long, and I think that's kind of the point. But one of the most, and this is always the case because they're the Dallas Cowboys, the NBA, in terms of the media attention they get, and rightfully so. It's a big brand. It's been one of the most watched, if not the most watched team in the NBA this year. Up there with Denver and Milwaukee and Golden State and Boston and Phoenix. Like all of those 6 teams we're going to be paying attention to throughout the course of the year, and certainly once the playoffs get here in April. But the Lakers had their media day. LeBron spoke. He said Anthony Davis is the face of the Lakers, what I think is nuts. I still think LeBron James is the face of the league. I think LeBron and Steph are still like the guys, the faces of the NBA. So AD's not even the face of LeBron's still the face of the Lakers. Therefore, he's the face of the NBA. I don't think there's any doubt about it. But Anthony Davis spoke, and before I get into what Anthony Davis told you, as Deion Sanders would say, as I always say on this show, give me my theme music. It is time for carving up the context. Here we go. All right, so talked about Anthony Davis, and he was doing a bunch of interviews, as all the players were, with the LA media, with the Lakers local broadcast team. Take a listen to what Anthony Davis said regarding the team that beat them, that swept them in the Western Conference Finals, the team that ended up winning the championship, the Denver Nuggets. Take a listen to what he says in terms of what the Lakers were thinking of the Nuggets in the offseason. Take a listen to AD the other day on Lakers Media Day.
It's very motivational. I mean, obviously, KCP is my guy, so you kind of congratulate him, like, you got this one. But it was just a lot of, like, the talking and all the Lakers. It was just so much of that going on. Like, all right, we get it, y'all won. But, I think, me and Brian had some conversations like, we can't wait. Like James said, there's no moral victories, and we didn't like, oh, well, we had a 0.3 chance of making it, and we got to the Western. Like, nah, we feel like that we had enough to win. Obviously, we were climbing an uphill battle for 2 months trying to make it the playoffs, but it's a lot of motivation. Like, you want to win. Anytime you lose, it's motivation to get ready for the next season, try to compete for a championship. So that in itself is motivation, but also all the little talking that had been going around all summer,
Y'all heard it?
Yeah.
Okay. So Anthony Davis says that he and LeBron James were talking this offseason about how the Nuggets were doing the trash talking, whatever the case may be. Here's the issue with that, and here's the context. I challenge Lakers players, and I challenge Lakers fans, and I challenge Lakers media and NBA media in this regard. Name the comment by a notable Denver Nuggets player that openly took a shot at the Los Angeles Lakers, be it any of their individual players or the team as a collective unit. Name it. Because and for the record, in fairness, I criticized Michael Malone, the head coach of the Denver Nuggets, remember after they won the championship, he was on the Pat McAfee show the day of the parade. And LeBron, we know, had been contemplating retirement, which, again, he was in year 20, age 38. I don't think that's a crazy thing for LeBron to do, to think about, like, hey, how much longer do I want to be doing this, given how great I've been and how much at this age and stage of my career, how much it takes to get me ready to play a season and just to play single games. And Michael Malone was saying, hey, guys, I'm going to be retiring today. I didn't love that. Matter of fact, I didn't like it at all. I'm defend LeBron in that regard, and I criticize Michael Malone for that comment. But the whole Nuggets announcer saying that, oh, Michael Malone is the Lakers' daddy. Who cares? He calls the games. This guy, I don't even know his name, has no impact. No impact. And I love play-by-play announcers, by the way, especially the great ones. But this guy has no impact on the outcome of games. Whether the Nuggets win, lose, whatever the case may be, when the Lakers and Nuggets play on opening night on October 24th, so a few weeks from now, that guy's going to have zero impact on that game, if he's even calling the game. I don't know if he's going to do radio, whatever the case may be. This has to be the most pathetic rivalry in the NBA that I've ever seen. Not kidding. And it is a rivalry. It is. In my book, a rivalry is, there's got to be a push and pull. There's got to be one team beats one team, then the other team comes back, whether it's the next year or years later, and beats them. It's got to be within the time frame of when the key players are there. Like, it can't be, I don't know, the Lakers beat the Pistons in the late 80s in the finals, and then in 2035, they beat the Pistons in the finals again. That's not a rivalry, okay? It's been a 40, 50-year time frame between those two. Lakers beat the Nuggets in the 2020 Western Conference Finals. Nuggets beat the Lakers in the 2023 Western Conference Finals. Therefore, it is a rivalry. Like, all honesty and all objectivity, the Warriors and the Lakers do not have a rivalry. There may be mutual respect, sure, but some dislike there, yeah. But the Lakers beat us in the playoffs last year. I don't count the play-in tournament. Stop. We didn't have a full roster. Play-in tournament, that's not the playoffs. It's not. It's not a best-of-7 series. Lakers beat us last year, though. We haven't beaten them in the best-of-7 series. It's not a rivalry. In that same breath, we've beaten Memphis in a best-of-7 series in 2022. They have never done that. Certainly with this group. It is not a rivalry. But this weird, I don't get it. The only comment I remember talking about on this show where a Lakers player said something about a Nuggets player was when Rui Hachimura, I think it was at halftime of like game 2 or whenever it was, when he said that the Nuggets were attacking the rim because the Nuggets don't have a rim protector. Okay, that's a little shot at Jokic, but is he wrong? Jokic, as great as he is, Jokic is not a shot blocker. He's an awesome scorer, an awesome passer. He's not a shot blocker. So I didn't think that was even I mean, it's a little dig, but he wasn't lying. And so this weird, LeBron's talking about the Nuggets, and AD said, yeah, man, me and LeBron were talking like this is, we gonna get them this year. Come on, man. Worry about the fact I'm slowly, and you guys know, since the offseason started, so, like, the day after, or well, actually, I did my show the Thursday. My first show after Denver won was a Thursday. So, from that day on, and certainly I maintained this during the offseason, during free agency, whatever, some trades were made. I said, look, I think that the Nuggets are the favorites out west. They lost Bruce Brown, which is a sneaky big loss, but Jokic is the best player in the NBA today. Today, he's the best player in the NBA. Jamal Murray, I think, is going to have an all-star level season. You got Aaron Gordon coming back, Michael Porter Jr. You got solid bench, Christian Brown, good coach. Denver's the favorite today. We should respect them in that regard. And I said, tied, neck and neck at second, Lakers, Warriors. You say, oh my God, the Lakers beat the Warriors last year and did it in 6 games. If you watch that series, Lakers blew out the Warriors twice, Warriors blew out the Lakers twice. Games 1 and 4 could have gone either way. Especially game 4. It's funny, game 1, they blew a lead, but ended up taking it there at the end. And in game 4, we blew a lead when Lonnie Walker going crazy in the fourth quarter. Still gives me nightmares to this day. But I thought they were neck and neck, followed by probably Phoenix, who I still don't buy into, and then like Sacramento, then you go Clippers, like sort of in that order. I'm not even gonna lie to you, y'all. I by the day, I'm buying less and less into the Lakers. Like, if the mindset by the Lakers is like, it's all about Denver, they're gonna lose. Be it to Golden State, be it to, and I'm dead serious when I say this, the Sacramento Kings. You say, oh my gosh, Sacramento. Sacramento is younger legs. Anthony Davis, we know his history, knock on wood, obviously don't ever wish for anybody to get hurt, but we know his history not just of injuries, but of consistently inconsistent play. Consistent, inconsistent play is the best way to put that. And LeBron, and while I love LeBron, I think LeBron's the greatest basketball player that's ever walked this planet. He is 38 going on 39 in year 21. Now, when he's on the floor, he'll still be great. Not best player in the league, great, but still great. Still, I think top 5, worst case, top 10 player, great. But when I have to worry about your best 2 players' health, it's not unfair of me to say, I don't know if I trust you quite as much, certainly as Denver, or even as much as Golden State. And so but what Anthony Davis is talking about, we're gunning for, he didn't exactly say we're gunning for Denver, but he was implying that me and LeBron are having conversations. Conversations about what? If you're having conversations about, hey, let's go win the championship next year. Okay, that's different. Every contending team's doing that. That's normal. But if you're talking about one team, I'll tell you what this means. I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what, guys. Lakers better win on opening night. Will it determine the course of their season? Of course it will. It's one game, 1 out of 82. But if the Lakers go into Denver, opening night, ring ceremony, and after the made-up trash talk that the Lakers have made up about the Nuggets players, again, Jokic hasn't said anything, Jamal Murray hasn't said anything, Aaron Gordon, none of the important players. If the 14th guy, if the 6th or 7th guy on the bench said something about LeBron or being old or something, who cares? It's and I don't even remember that being the case. So what Anthony Davis is saying, it's kind of a straw man. I'm not gonna lie to you about Michael Malone. That's one thing. Again, that was just one comment Michael Malone made. And then the Nuggets announcer, man, who cares? Does he play? Does he coach? No, disregard it. Doesn't matter. Okay, that's the equivalent. I'm not trying to disrespect the guy, but that's the equivalent of if, I don't know, a season ticket holder as courtside seats said something. Okay, he doesn't impact the game. I don't know. I saw Anthony Davis said that. I'm like, really? This is not. It's a rivalry, technically, at least by my definition of it. It has to be the most pathetic rivalry I've ever seen in the NBA. It really is. And so, hey, listen, let the Lakers worry about the Nuggets while my Warriors, who have the morale is finally back in the locker room. We've got smart players. We've got good young players. Let the Warriors run rough shot in the West, as we tend to do. Y'all worry about Denver, Lakers, and you should worry about Denver. Everybody in the West should worry about Denver. But that's not the only team that's a threat to you. It's not. Just weird comments by Anthony Davis. I didn't get it at all. Very odd. But again, it's going back to, and I think the Lakers roster, and I'm saying this as a Warriors fan, I think the Lakers roster is excellent. They added shooters. The Christian Wood addition, I don't think is near as big as people give it credit for. There's a reason Christian Wood was available in September, let's be honest. But I think Austin Reeves is going to be better this year. I loved I've been a Hachimura fan since his days at Gonzaga. I think he's a really, really solid player. I think he'll be good. So look, you give D'Angelo Russell, bring him back again, solid move. I'm not as big of a D'Lo fan as some are, but I understand them bringing him back. So they added, what's my man's name from played at Duke in college? Oh my gosh, Cam. What's his name? It's driving me crazy. I can't remember his name. I know it's Cam something, right? It's the guy played at Duke. He played with Zion and RJ Barrett. I don't know. Somebody in the comments help me out. Name's not coming to my mind at this particular juncture. But yeah, that's where I'm at on the Lakers, though. That's where I'm at. It's just weird. I'm sorry. It's weird. It's the most pathetic rivalry I've ever seen in the NBA, by far. By far. What is, guys, I'm gonna Google this. This is, how do I not remember this guy's name? Hold on. You just search the Lakers roster. Sometimes you just got to do some on the fly Google searches. Oh, they had Gabe Vincent. I forgot about that. Where is he? Crap, I can't even find him here. It's unbelievable. Let me just hold on. Let me see. This is, like I said, this is sad. This is sometimes you're doing live podcasts, your brain just goes. It just goes, man. Hang on. So I'm just looking at Duke's roster now. Cam Reddish, that's who it was. I was like, it's Cam Reddish. That's who it was. And I like Cam Reddish, by the way. Really liked him out of that draft. Hasn't panned out into what I thought he'd be, but yeah. Again, Gabe Vincent. They added. They brought Jared Vanderbilt back. They brought D'Angelo Russell back. So good moves by the Lakers. But worry about more than Denver, guys. Worry about more than Denver. Okay. So, hold on. This just got this update. According to Jeremy Fowler of ESPN, this says the Raiders will not trade Devontae Adams, despite all the recent chatter about frustrations within the team. Okay. I don't know if I totally believe that. I'm not disregarding the report. I'm disregarding the Raiders saying they won't trade him. Okay. Okay. It may get to a point where you have to, where he's frustrated enough with the organization. Because Devontae Adams joined the Raiders. The whole point of that was, listen, Aaron Rodgers is awesome. We have a great rapport, but year in and year out, he's talking about retirement. And I don't want to get to a point in time where I sign long-term with Green Bay, and then Aaron Rodgers leaves, and I'm stuck with Jordan Love. I'm stuck with an average to a bad quarterback. Jordan Love's not a bad quarterback, but I do think he's kind of that average to below average category. I don't want to be stuck here. I want to play with good quarterbacks. And so he goes to Vegas to play with Derek Carr, who, you guys know I love Derek Carr, but that's his college teammate. And the irony is, the reason he left Green Bay, that situation, or what he thought might transpire in Green Bay, is actually what transpired in Vegas because they traded Derek Carr. So, did they trade Derek Carr? They moved on from Derek Carr. That's the point. The point of the story. So, we'll see. Let's see 3 weeks from now whether this story and this mindset by the Raiders remains the same about not trading Devontae Adams. Like, if you keep losing games, and again, you play in a division that has the Kansas City Chiefs in it, and in a conference that has a plethora of great quarterbacks and tremendous, contending teams, you may be in a situation where you have to trade, but you get a haul for him. You get a haul for him. Okay, it is now time for one of my favorite segments of the week. You guys know my favorite segment is If I Were a Betting Man. But the next best thing is something that I introduced before this NFL season. And by the way, in future installments of this segment, it won't be relegated to just NFL. It could be top 10 Star Wars movies, okay? By the way, Ahsoka, the finale, awesome. I need a season 2. Point is, back to sports, it could be anything. But given that we're in the NFL season, it's a week-to-week league. It is now time for Bryson's Best 10. So let's go and get the background music going. Here we go for Bryson's Best 10. Going into week 5 now. Let's start with the 10th best team in the NFL, a team making their Bryson's Best 10 debut for this 2023 NFL season. It is the Los Angeles Rams. LA, not the Chargers, the Rams are, to me, the 10th best team in the National Football League, and here's why. So, they're 2-2. They've had a couple of clunkers against the, I shouldn't say couple. They have one clunker against the Cincinnati Bengals, but they come back last week. They beat the Indianapolis Colts. They do so in overtime. They did blow a 23-point lead for the game to get to overtime, but Matthew Stafford throws a pass to Puka Nacua at the end to win it. By the way, Nacua has been a man amongst boys in his rookie year. 39 catches through 4 games. I believe that's an NFL record, if I'm not mistaken. It's certainly a rookie record. And you consider the fact that it was just announced today by Sean McVay that Cooper Kupp is going to be back with the team soon. It looks like he may be able to suit up this week and play for the Rams against the Philadelphia Eagles. They'll certainly need him for that matchup. But you consider the fact that Matthew Stafford, throughout the first part of the season, has been efficient. He's played relatively clean football. The big shocker for the Rams, at least in my eyes, because I view the Rams as kind of like a 7-win team, is the fact that they have run the ball. Even back to their Super Bowl year, they did not rush the football this effectively. One of the best teams in the NFL run the football. The offensive line has been better than expected. Aaron Donald's been great in the defensive side of the ball. The defense, the front 7 has been very good. It was good last week against the Indianapolis Colts with the rushing attack that they have. Matt Stafford's played good football. They've got Puka Nacua. They've got Tutu Atwell. And they've got Cooper Kupp coming back from injury. I like their running game. I like their weapons. I really like their quarterback. And I like their defense. yeah, this week, they crack in the top 10. They want to go up this list? Beat Philadelphia. Then a lot more people will buy into the Los Angeles Rams. At number 9, a team in the Rams division, it is the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle, the 9th best team in the NFL, and here is why. So, Seattle, I had them at 8th last week. You're like, Bryson, how the heck did they drop? Well, I had Buffalo at 10th last week, so obviously Buffalo shot up the list because they're winning against Miami. But this is about Seattle. So, what I thought was very impressive, and the story of that game against the New York Giants was, they struggled, the Giants struggled. Daniel Jones, they weren't able to protect him, whatever the case may be. What I thought was impressive about Seattle is the fact that Geno Smith gets hurt, is out of the game for the time being. Drew Lock comes in, plays well, has a QBR of 81 while he's in the game. Seattle ran the ball very effectively. I've always been a Kenneth Walker fan, but they've also got Charbonnet who ran the ball well, averaged 6 yards a carry. So when you consider the fact their backup steps in, their offensive line plays well despite some injuries there, you've got obviously the good running game with Charbonnet and with Kenneth Walker. And they've got, and I've said this since the offseason, it's why I picked Seattle to go back to the playoffs, they've got maybe the most underrated wide receiving core in all of football with DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and Jackson Smith-Njigba. So when you consider what they can do in the run game and the pass game, and first and foremost, this is a, let's just say last but not least, this is a Pete Carroll coach defense, and those tend to be flirting with elite. They seem to get better and better week after week. The Seattle Seahawks are looking good right now. I'm not saying they're a contender, but I do believe they're a team that's going to make the playoffs this year. They are, to me, the 9th best team in the NFL. To number 8, it is the Detroit Lions. And again, you say, Bryson, why did they drop for a spot? That is because the Buffalo Bills jump up multiple spots on this list. But the Detroit Lions, to me, Detroit Lions are the 9th best team. I'm sorry, the Detroit Lions are the 8th best team in the National Football League, and here's why. And now you guys know I've been high on the Lions all offseason. I predicted them to get to the NFC title game. They've looked pretty good thus far, particularly on the defensive side, which is part of the reason I said they get there, because their offense, we know how good it is. And the offense is actually getting some reinforcements. Jamison Williams is coming back from not just an ACL tear, but a gambling suspension. He'll be back in the lineup sooner rather than later. Jared Goff has played very good football, especially with a clean pocket. This Lions offensive line is amongst the best in the NFL. They've got a good running game. Obviously, we would like them to use Jahmyr Gibbs more, but David Montgomery was a monster in that Thursday night win against Green Bay, and that, too, is the mark of a contender. In a situation where Green Bay is not a bad team, I don't love Green Bay this year, but they're not a bunch of scrubs. Jordan Love's had his moments. That's a solid Green Bay defense and solid weapons there. When you are a team that's favored on the road going in against a division rival that you historically have gotten owned by, and you go in and mop the floor with them in virtually every aspect of the game, up front, in the running game, in the passing game. Their secondary was good, was opportunistic, taking the football away from Jordan Love. There's not a whole lot I don't like about this Lions team. I think they're well coached. I really like their roster. Jared Goff just continues to show, at least in my eyes, why he is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. Detroit Lions, the 8th best team in the National Football League. At number 7, a team that fell a lot, it's the Miami Dolphins, who I had at number 2 last week. They dropped 5 whole spots to number 7 this week, although they still stay in the top 10. Bryce's best 10, but Miami at number 7. Here is why. So we saw again the 70-point game kind of being the capper, but this is a Dolphins offense that's been one of the most explosive in the league. It's definitely the fastest offense in the NFL with Tyreek, with Jalen Waddle, with Raheem Mostert. With the rookie running back they have there as well. Good offensive line. I'm not going to lie to you, that game against Buffalo, again, you can lose in the NFL, but it really is, how you lose does matter. How you win matters. Remember Minnesota won all those close games last year? I liked them. Most didn't. They were validated when they lost to the Giants in the playoffs because simply put, the Vikings weren't blowing teams out, and if you're a good team, you kind of need to blow teams out from time to time. Even bad teams do that here and there. But as far as the Dolphins are concerned, that is not a game. Again, if you want to be in that discussion, which I still think they kind of are amongst the contenders in the AFC, you can't show up at kind of the opposite of the Lions here. You can't show up against a division rival on the road. I get it's Buffalo, but it isn't Buffalo in December when it's crappy weather. It's probably snowing. It's 25, 30 degrees. No, weather was good in Buffalo. It's early October weather. That should be clarified. Tua wasn't terrible. He wasn't particularly efficient in the second half. The running game kind of went, especially after Buffalo built the lead they did. Jalen Ramsey will be back later this season, we assume, but this is a Vic Fangio coach defense, and I thought that'd be a huge acquisition for this Dolphins team. Thus far, it hasn't paid quite the dividends that I thought it would. However, Miami's got a pretty easy schedule the next few games. They do have the New York Giants this week at home. They should win that game. Miami, I think, will be fine, but I did think the Bills exposed some issues that the Dolphins do have. The Miami Dolphins are the 7th best team in the NFL. At number 6, a team that drops a couple spots, the Philadelphia Eagles. And you're like, Bryson, timeout. They're 4-0, one of the only 2 4-0 teams in the NFL, along with the San Francisco 49ers, and you dropped them a couple spots? Yes, I did, and here's why. So, I was very impressed with Philadelphia's offense. That's the best they've looked thus far this season in the passing game with Jalen Hurts. A.J. Brown had a big-time afternoon against the Washington Commanders. A weakness that Philadelphia has, though, the good news is they can address it in the trade deadline. If they go after, this particular position, the middle of their defense and their secondary in general is truly awful. Awful. There's not been, aside from the game against Tampa Bay, in which the offensive line for Tampa Bay struggled badly against Philadelphia's elite front four, you've got Sam Howell going up and down. Sam Howell's fine, but Sam Howell's going up and down the field on them. You got Kirk Cousins, if he's not turning the ball over, going up and down the field on him. Heck, you have Mac Jones going up and down the field on this Philadelphia defense. That is something, and I love the offense. And you guys know I bought into Jalen Hurts starting last season. The running game is awesome. Their offensive line's great. Their front four is amazing. That secondary will get them beat in the playoffs if they don't address it at the trade deadline. Dak Prescott can beat that secondary. We've seen him do it in the past. A healthy Brock Purdy is capable of beating that secondary. Jared Goff is capable of beating that secondary. I mean, Mac Jones is. Any of those guys are. So that's got to be something they address, but they're 4-0. They're absolutely a contender in the NFC. I really enjoyed seeing them put together a good offensive performance, at least from their perspective. But they have got to address the middle of their defense, the safeties in particular. Philadelphia, to me, actually dropped the 6th best team in the NFL. At number 5, I never thought I'd see the day, this year at least, where this team would move up the way they have. But at number 5, it is the Buffalo Bills. So Buffalo I've got at number 5 for very obvious reasons. So they suffer the bad loss on the road against the New York Jets with Zach Wilson playing all but, of course, famously 4 snaps in that football game. But if you look at the last 3 weeks, look at virtually all the numbers. Josh Allen's been the best quarterback in football. He's first in passer rating, first in yards. He's not turned the football over, which has kind of been his bugaboo, even as high of a ceiling as he has. His floor is being careless with the ball, being careless in general, being reckless is what I've called him, taking risks that really don't need to be taken given the game situation. Stephon Diggs had a monster afternoon against the Miami Dolphins. They carved up that defense up and down the field. But Buffalo's defense, too, to me, is the story, and the fact that they're top 3 in virtually every defensive category that matters, whether it's points, whether it's takeaways, whether it's sacks in particular. I don't know if they're third in takeaways necessarily, but they're definitely top 3 in sacks. They've got Von Miller coming back pretty soon. I've always liked Sean McDermott. I think he's a good coach. Buffalo's running game has been better than it has been in years past with Josh Allen. There's not much not to like. The only reason I have them at 5 and not where a lot of people have them, which is like 2, 3. Some people have them as the best team in the league, which I think is absurd. But the reason I have them at number 5 and not higher is because the fact that we've seen them do this before. They get off these hot regular season starts, these 4-1 starts, these 6-1 starts. Today they're obviously 3-1, and then they kind of finish this regular season either rough or they have some clunkers in the playoffs. We've seen them do this before, and I think that's a reasonable criticism to have of Buffalo, but they look great both sides of the ball. The Bills are the 5th best team in the NFL. At number 4, a team that moves up a spot from last week, it is the Baltimore Ravens. Sickens me as a Steelers fan to say, but I gotta call it like I see it. The Ravens, to me, are the 4th best team in the NFL, and here is why. So, what I thought was very impressive, and I said I picked Baltimore to win that game against Cleveland before I even knew Deshaun wasn't going to play that game. Obviously, Deshaun, I've been critical of him, but he's a better option than Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I was impressed with the fact that the Ravens went into that game against a Cleveland defense that's been shutting offenses down. They hold the Bengals to 3. They hold the Titans to 3. They hold the Steelers offense, which isn't that hard to do, by the way, with Matt Canada coaching. They hold them to 12. And Baltimore walks onto Cleveland's grass, turf, wherever they play on these days. They walk into Cleveland, drop 28 on their heads, and you got Lamar Jackson out here who'd struggled a little bit, having a passer rating of 142. That added to the fact that they rushed for 131 yards against a Cleveland Browns front seven, which is among the best in the NFL, against a well-coached Browns defense which was coached by Jim Schwartz. Listen, and they're doing it too without Odell Beckham Jr. They're doing it at the moment without great wide receiver play. John Harbaugh's a great coach. We know how great they are on special teams with Justin Tucker, but Lamar's played good football. The run game has been good. Again, they got Ronnie Stanley back from injury. The secondary got better with Marcus Williams coming back. So the running game's been excellent. Passing game has really took a big step in the right direction. I love Tom Munkin as a fit with Lamar Jackson. The Ravens to me are the fourth best team in the NFL. They look good. They really do. I think they're the favorites in the AFC North today, especially the way Cincinnati's flounder. Ravens, to me, fourth best team in the NFL. At number 3, it is the Dallas Cowboys, who move up a couple spots. I had them at number 5 last week. I had them at number 3 today, and here is why. So, we know how great the defense is, and the defense... I want to apologize to the Cowboys and their fans for saying that the Patriots would score 16 in the Cowboys. When I predicted that game, I said Dallas would win 34-16. I apologize for making the insane assumption that Mac Jones, of all people, will put up 16 points. That's not much, but for Mac Jones, that's a lot. On the Dallas Cowboys defense, I apologize sincerely for that. Dallas' defense was awesome. They got to Mac Jones consistently. They turned the ball over 3 times against him. Deron Bland with 2 interceptions, 2 kind of easy interceptions because Mac Jones looked him down. But props to Mr. Bland for taking advantage. To me, what puts him at number 3? It's Dak Prescott. When you consider the fact that we get on Dak when he plays bad, and I'll tell you, we are as quiet as little church mice when he does play well. So Dak Prescott against 2 of the best defenses in the NFL, 2 of the best coach defenses in the NFL, the New York Jets, who, did you see what they did to Patrick Mahomes the other night? Mahomes struggled through 2 bad picks. Yeah, and Dak Prescott just he's sitting back in his rocket chair, had a passer rating of 112. No big deal. Great defense. Passer rating 112. No biggie. And against the New England Patriots, coached by Bill Belichick. Maybe you've heard of him. Dak has a passer rating of 108. Again, does not turn the ball over in that game. Was very efficient. Completion percentage was off the charts in both matchups. Dak Prescott, as I said earlier in today's show, he's going to have to be the guy to win it for Dallas. Not the run game. Not necessarily some other components. Defensively, I know Dallas will be good against San Francisco because they're a great defense. Dak Prescott has to win this game with his arm for the Cowboys to beat the San Francisco 49ers. I think he is capable of doing that because he's shown us thus far this season 2 elite defenses, Jets, Patriots. It's been great against both. San Francisco's a different test, but I think my man, Rain Dakota Prescott, is capable of putting together a good offensive performance in San Francisco against the Niners. The Dallas Cowboys, because of Dak Prescott, that's what pushes them over the top to be the 3rd best team in football in my eyes. Dallas Cowboys at number 3. At number 2, they don't move, the Kansas City Chiefs. You're like, oh, come on, Bryson. Come on. Kansas City goes into the Jets. We know the Taylor Swift story, and the Taylor Swift love story. See what I did there? Swift reference. Kansas City goes into New York against the Jets, and there's all this media attention. A lot of it, we saw the demographic, of 18 to 24-year-old women, and like I think 12 to 17-year-old girls like shoot up, obviously because of Taylor, to bring a new audience to watch football, which is awesome. But Kansas City goes in, they go up 17-0 on the Jets, but then there's the safety, which wasn't a safety, but they called it a safety, and then Zach Wilson's playing well, and he's building confidence, and he's making this a more interesting game than certainly I think even Jets fans thought it would be. But then what do the Chiefs do? They do what any championship team does with championship DNA. They take the ball away at midfield from Zach Wilson, and they put together a 7-minute drive. 7-minute drive to eat the clock. You say, oh, they were aided by bad calls. Well, if you look at that game, there were actually some horrendous calls on Kansas City as well, so it evened itself out pretty well there. Mahomes did not have a good day whatsoever against the New York Jets defense, which, again, is really good. We talked about the going into the season, and they played well against Mahomes, but again, and I keep saying this, I said this, I remember back in week 2, that if you should feel great if you're a Chiefs fan, because the defense has been great in every single game. If your concern is Mahomes is a little off, oh, baby, you're in great shape. You are in fantastic shape if you're a Chiefs fan. So Kansas City, to me, the second best team in the NFL. They've shown me no reason that I should drop them. And I've seen nothing from anybody else that says, oh, yeah, they're definitely better than Kansas City. except for the best team in the NFL, and I've had them here since week 2, the San Francisco 49ers. Do I need to put together once again my soliloquy of the fact that they have easily, far and away, the best roster in the NFL, top to bottom? As I mentioned earlier in the show, Pro Football Focus graded 4 players on the San Francisco 49ers, which is a solid percentage of their overall team, or the overall starters, I should say. 4 players in the San Francisco 49ers, according to Pro Football Focus, are the best at their position. That's what they're capable of doing. Offensively, we know they can rush the football. Christian McCaffrey, to me, he's interesting. I think Christian McCaffrey, he's got an NBA comp. Nikola Jokic. Now, Christian McCaffrey, he's the best running back in the league. He's not the best player in the league. Jokic, to me, is the best player in the NBA, if worst case, second or third. But Jokic is a unicorn where, yeah, he's a great scorer, but a lot of big men have been great scorers. No. He's an elite rebounder. Well, a lot of great centers in the NBA have been great rebounders. He is one of the best passers in basketball as a big. Oh, and he just so happens to be one of the most efficient scorers, even from three-point range, even from the mid-range, the floater. Christian McCaffrey's a unicorn. Of course, he's a great running back, but again, we've seen plenty of those. Not to diminish them, but we've seen plenty of those. He can catch the ball in the backfield, though. He can run in between the tackles, at his size, mind you. He can run off tackle. He is maybe the fastest player on his own team with respect to guys like Deebo Samuel. Maybe one of the fastest players in the NFL, save for Tyreek Hill and Jalen Hyatt. I mean, this guy is he's a unicorn. We've never seen a running back quite like him. Brock Purdy, it's time we stop disrespecting Brock Purdy week in and week out. The Niners offensive coaching staff, led by Kyle Shanahan, clearly trust him in order for him to make some big-time throws, pushing the ball down the field, moving in and outside the pocket to set his team up in a position to be successful. The Niners defense is awesome. They have all pros everywhere on both sides of the football. Actually, kind of like their kicker, too, by the way. And Kyle Shanahan is an offensive mastermind. The San Francisco 49ers, once again, for the now 4th week in a row, are the best team on Bryson's best 10, and therefore, because I have had the final say on all this, as I'm sure you guys know, the best team in the National Football League. There you go. Bryson's best 10. So again, 9 returning teams from, let me get a drink of Gatorade here. 9 returning teams from for Bryce's best 10 last week. Again, if you didn't watch last week's Bryce's best 10, I had my Pittsburgh Steelers in there. I'm not even sure they're a top 15 team right now. It's just hard to watch, an offensive coordinator waste what you have at wide receiver and running back. But, that's what Matt Canada does. I decided, listen, I like what I'm seeing for the Los Angeles Rams. And the Rams are in a position that the Bills were in last week, where I had the Bills last week at number 10, because I'm like, okay, I like what I'm seeing, but I still don't trust Josh Allen quite in the biggest of moments, particularly late in the fourth quarter with the careless plays and the turnovers. But I said if they beat the Dolphins, they'll fly up the list. I kind of view the Los Angeles Rams in a similar sense where they're at number 10, but if they beat Philly, well, they may not fly up the list as much Buffalo will, but they'll definitely go up. They'll be in everybody's top 10 if they beat Philadelphia. They're already in mine this week, and they'll certainly get to, maybe they'll flirt with top 5 territory. Maybe. Crazier things have happened. By the way, this week 5 schedule, I'm about to predict Bears and Commanders in just a second, but it's obviously week 5 is headlined by Cowboys-Niners, which is probably the highest rated game of the year. How about London? Once again, or I shouldn't say once again, last week was kind of a dud if you're a diehard football fan. But this one here, Jacksonville, Buffalo, 2 elite quarterbacks. Yes, Trevor Lawrence is elite. Trevor Lawrence, Josh Allen, you got the coaching staffs for both squads, which I think are really good. Good rosters, fairly evenly matched. That's going to be a good one in London. I'm excited. Jaguars don't lose in London, but the Bills are 5.5-point favorites in that game. What else we got? We got... let me look at the schedule here. Bengals-Cardinals is interesting because Bengals are, like the Cardinals, have 1 win, and the Bengals, unlike the Cardinals, are committing, I shouldn't say quarterback malpractice, but they're certainly flirting with that in the sense that their best chance to win, the Bengals' best chance to win a Super Bowl or to even be in that discussion, it's hard to put them there because they're 1-3 today, but for them to put themselves in that discussion, you rest Joe Burrow. You sit him this week, and surely to goodness, given how Burrow has played, you can beat the Arizona Cardinals at home. I'm sorry, I apologize, folks. It's in Arizona. You can beat Arizona in Arizona with a backup quarterback. Surely to goodness, rely on Joe Mixon. Give your quarterback some easy plays. Allow him to play with the lead. Defense gets opportunistic. Maybe forces James Conner into a fumble or two. They should win that game with no Joe Burrow. The next week they play Seattle. They will not beat Seattle without Joe Burrow. Frankly, they won't beat him with Joe Burrow because Joe Burrow's hurt. But they have a bye week after that. And then they play the buzzsaw in San Francisco known as the 49ers. Maybe I'm crazy when I say this, but your best chance to beat the 49ers and your best chance to get your season back on track is to have Joe Burrow as healthy as humanly possible. And the way to do that is for sitting him the next 3 weeks. Because, that calf looks worse and worse and worse every single week. You see Burrow constantly grimacing on the sideline. He's grabbing it. He's uncomfortable. Man, rest him for the next 3 weeks. This is why the Bengals have been a laughingstock franchise pre-Burrow. Again, Eagles-Rams is an interesting matchup. Jets-Broncos, I know it's 2-1-3 teams, but if you remember, this is the Sean Payton game because Sean Payton took a shot at the former Broncos head coach, Nathaniel Hackett, because Hackett did a bad job in Denver last year, and Sean Payton told Jarrett Bell of USA Today, he said, it's the worst coaching job I've ever seen in the history of the NFL, and basically saying, I'm going to fix this. Well, they're 1-3, their defense is awful, and their offense is bad situationally outside of last week. Props to him, Russell played well, but Jets, Broncos, you have this game, so it's the Sean Payton, the Nat Hackett game. That'll be fun. Chiefs, Vikings, I think the Chiefs are going to wax Minnesota. And then Packers, Raiders on Monday Night Football. That is going to be Devontae Adams' first game against his former team, so that'll be fun. But Week 5 kicks off with, I'm not going to sit up here and lie to you guys, because that's not, I don't want to lie to my audience, because you guys take time out of your day to watch, and I greatly appreciate that. So my job is, I wouldn't lie to you anyway, but especially if you're taking time out of your day to watch, I can't lie to y'all. So let's turn the background music back on. This is, with all due respect, and usually, with all due respect, usually a disrespectful statement follows that. This isn't exactly a must-see game. Like, you gotta get, this is like Dallas, San Francisco, you gotta get in front of your TV and watch this matchup between the Chicago Bears and the Washington Commanders. But it is intriguing for a few reasons. So, first of all, Washington is a 6-point home favorite in this matchup against Chicago. The Bears, who have not won a regular season game, or game in general, obviously, they haven't made the playoffs in a very long time. I should say, they haven't made the playoffs the last couple of years. Point is, the Bears have not won a game since October of 2022, which they did so against Mac Jones and the New England Patriots. So, it's pretty easy to get wins against those guys. But the going on the road to Washington, this is the closest the Bears have come, at least last week, to winning a football game this season. Maybe even in this losing streak to winning game. They lost to the Denver Broncos. They had a 21-point lead, blew it at the end. A very questionable 4th down and 1 call by Matt Eberflus, who reports have said that if the Bears lose this game, drop to 0-5, Eberflus probably loses his job. I don't think that necessarily even be the wrong move by the Bears. They've mismanaged Justin Fields to a certain extent in not really playing to his strengths. That loss to the Broncos was not on Mr. Fields, who's had a very uneven season, some bad moments, some really good moments, not a whole lot in between. He's kind of like coin flip Davis, Anthony Davis. He's either great or he's awful. So that's the, you don't necessarily want that from your franchise quarterback, or what you hope to be your franchise quarterback at the very least. Washington's an interesting one. Washington, to me, then again, they're 6-point favorites. It's that they're almost good enough to be put in that NFC wildcard discussion, where Sam Howell's playing pretty darn good football, played very well against Philadelphia in Philly on Sunday. And again, this is a short week for the Commanders. Eric Bieniemy seemed to really change this whole Commanders offensive system. He's used the weapons they have there, in particular Terry McLaurin, and the offensive line in Washington has been good as well. And their defense, led by Chase Young, has played relatively well, with the exception of the last couple of weeks. They'll get an opportunity, kind of a get-right game for the defense against Chicago's struggling offense. So, you got Ron Rivera, you got Matt Eberflus, 2 defensive guys. I think this is going to be an opportunity, given how awful the Bears' defense has been. I think this is an opportunity for Washington to kind of break out. Again, this isn't a marquee game. This isn't one you got to get in front of your TV to watch. I'll watch, obviously, because I love football. I want to watch football, and I'll be talking about this game likely to leave my show on Friday, barring any other unforeseen events. But given how awful this Bears defense is, I mean, Russell Wilson went up and down the field on him. And Russell's better this year than he was last year, but that shouldn't happen. You should have given up 31 points to the Denver Broncos, missing a bunch of offensive players. I'm going to take the Washington Commanders to score 34 points on the Chicago Bears. The Washington Commanders score 34 on the Bears and win this game 34-19 over Chicago. Get to 3-2. A little short 2-game losing streak for Washington. I think they kind of a get right game once again for them. They win this one 34-19. They do cover the 6-point spread and they get to 3-2 and right in the midst of that NFC wildcard discussion. Again, there's things I like about this team. Sam Howell's playing well. Now, when coordinators in the future get film on him, will that kind of change a little bit? Potentially. But Washington has good pieces. I like Bieniemy a lot as their OC. Could be an interesting matchup. But I got the Commanders. I'm going to lie. 6 feels like a perfect line for this game. I'm not going to lie to you. I'd be pretty surprised if the Bears won. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I mean, obviously, of course, I picked the Commanders to win by 15. I think Washington's defense has a lot of playmakers, particularly in their front 7. Chase Young, Cole Holcomb, Jonathan Allen. It doesn't look like, I'm looking at the injury report right now. It doesn't appear to be that any of those guys are going to miss for Washington, so they should be ready to go. So, Commanders win this one 34-19 over the Chicago Bears. The Bears lose once again. All right, that is all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by. As always, be sure to catch Carving It Up Live on Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on Twitter, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. And be sure, of course, to go like, share, comment, and take 2 seconds out of your day. Hit that big red subscribe button. Helps the channel grow exponentially. And, of course, be sure to go subscribe to the Grid Network. That is GRYD, the Grid Podcast Network, right here on YouTube, as well as any and everywhere you get your favorite podcast, be it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, any and everywhere you get your favorite podcast. Just had the 8 o'clock spot here on the Grid last night. Had a blast. Congrats to Adam Bessie of the Cowboys Cam Fan Podcast to put up a spectacular performance to beat the defending reigning champion Mike Frozone Guido, who did have a couple of Frozone moments I forgot to bring up during the show. But a great show, 8 o'clock spot, and check out our other awesome content creators on the network. And again, real quick before we get out of here, again, my goal, I forgot to mention this, is to get to 1,000 subscribers by Super Bowl 58, which is February the 11th. We are up to, let me check and give a live update. I think we're up to 448 right now, 448 subscribers, yes, to Carving Up Live. So if you have subscribed, thank you so much. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell their friend to tell somebody else's friend to tell their mother to tell their whoever, okay? To go subscribe to Carving It Up and the Grid Network, of course, too. If you have not subscribed, again, just takes a couple seconds. Just hit the subscribe button. It's that quick. There, done. You did it. Congratulations. Your life has been made better because of it. That's what we hope to do, grow the channel. So thank you so much for y'all's support. See y'all on Friday. Please be sure to stay safe out there. Please be sure to take care of your physical as well as your mental health. And please, 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 we had some more events recently where this has got to be addressed. Please contact your local state representatives and senators to demand change for gun violence in America. Just had some very disturbing news coming off, a couple of incidents around the country revolving around gun violence. We've got to stop this problem, folks. So let's do our part in the ballot box. Let's do our part in calling those who are in power to address this problem. I'll see you on Friday's show. Got a game tomorrow night. Washington will beat Washington. I almost said Washington will beat the Commanders. Washington will beat Chicago 34-19 and cover the 6-point spread. So I'm winning y'all money there. That's what we do here in Carving Up Live. I'm on a hot streak on Thursday Night Football. So see you then. See you on Friday. God bless y'all. Peace out. Man, how about the Rays? Ooh. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.